about to piss some people off right now with what I'm about to say, but you know what? I've been on the internet long enough to know that when you're pissing off one group of people, you're going to be inspiring another. So this is for the people who feel like me, maybe who feel like embarrassed to talk about this kind of stuff because, feminism, women fought to have the right to work and stuff. But honestly, I kind of just always wanted to be a housewife. And I'm not kidding. Like, when I was very young, I lived in Turkey, so we had a housekeeper. It was like the norm. And I would watch her, what she does around the house, the cooking, the cleaning, like taking care of everything. And I was thinking, like, can I just do that? Like, that looks so much easier than going to school and learning all this useless crap. Mind you, I was really good at school. Like, I was extremely smart. But I was also smart enough to realize that I was burning myself out by overperforming to such an extent. I was pushing my own limits, and I knew it. And in fact, when I got to around the end of high school, I was completely burnt out to the point where I had zero energy to function as a human being. It was literally almost like my body's way of saying, no, stop. That's enough. We can't do this anymore. And I burnt out so badly that I couldn't finish high school. I don't think I ever mentioned that on this channel, but now you know, like, it was serious. Like, my body was so messed up just by me pushing myself to my absolute limit to meet the standard that society put for me. And that was just school. That was just school. I was so incompatible that I couldn't even finish school, let alone start getting into work. I think it's all well and good that women have rights now and we can choose to do whatever the hell we want. But I think some of us just weren't built for this life. It's too stressful. I don't think I'm physically capable of having a career. Like, I genuinely don't think, unless it's something that I'm already naturally doing in my day-to-day life, and then that can become a career, which I don't even know what that word means anymore. I can't do it. Like, my body literally shuts down on me if I try to push myself beyond a certain limitation. And I don't need to prove that to myself again, because what I went through at the end of my high school career, it was so painful and so debilitating. It took me years to recover. I'm not joking. Like, I was pretty much housebound for about 2 years. And I thought I had chronic fatigue. So I was like doing a lot of research on chronic fatigue syndrome. And lo and behold, it was burnout. And autism has to do with it, yeah, because autistic burnout is a thing. And when you have an autistic brain, you're putting a lot more energy into everything that everybody else does, basically. You're over functioning to the point that you can debilitate yourself, and your brain will just like shut down at one point. And that's what happened to me. So long story short, I kind of just gave up. Like, I was so tired that I was like, you know what, I'm not made for this life. Like, let me just exit. You know what I'm saying? That's how useless I felt in this society. Like, I can't do anything right because my body just literally won't function. And I was also really depressed at this point, obviously. There were other things too, PTSD, childhood abuse, things like that. But, all in all, it wasn't a great time. If you don't know, I'm on the autism spectrum, and I'm what they call high-functioning autistic, which to me sounds like it's not the right term. They should define it better, because what does high-functioning mean? Maybe on the spectrum I'm high-functioning, but compared to neurotypicals, within the context of this society, I'm non-functional. So high-functioning, maybe they should change that. But anyway, as you can see, I didn't do it. I'm still here. But that was a conscious choice I had to make to stay. Because I knew my life wouldn't look like what anybody else expected it to look like. It's around the time I got this tattoo, actually. This tattoo is my commitment to staying. Because this is where the scar would have been. So I chose to stay. But what that meant for me is that I also had to keep making choices that were correct for me, that felt good in my body that literally nobody else in my life would accept, understand, or approve of. Because it's not their experience. That they experience a completely different life than me, and they can't relate to what it feels like. So this is my commitment to me, to understanding myself to such an extent. I have to make choices that are loving for me, that are self-loving for me. And, I always used to say like, oh, I don't have any passions in life. I'm not passionate about anything. But that's not true. I'm very passionate about connection. Like any of my exes would attest to this. I'm a very affectionate person. I'm very passionate about connection. That is a passion of mine. Like I would love to provide a nurturing environment for somebody who would appreciate getting that from me, Like I'm good at decorating. I'm good at making art. I'm good at making a space feel like a home. Like, yes, I'll do the cooking. Yes, I'll do the cleaning. I don't see that as an insulting job. I think it serves a purpose. There used to be a time where this was the norm for women to just be stay-at-home wives, and this was their job. And if I had to think about myself living in that time period, it feels like such a relief to me. That doesn't feel like a prison. That feels like relief because, oh my God, finally, like this is exactly what I'm capable of. This is what I was made for. And okay, now we have the choice. Of course, it's great that we don't, we have a choice to participate in society. But at the same time, now it's expected of us to participate in society. Now it's expected of us to be hyper independent. And I'm sorry, but I'm not built for that. Like, that's too stressful for me. I can't do it. I can't do that and survive. So, what I'm passionate about is not out there in the world in terms of a career, in terms of a purpose like that. What I'm passionate about is in here, and it's a quiet passion, I'm passionate about nurturing. I don't want to have kids, so that's not my passion. I'm a passionate person, but I need to be in a space where I'm functional enough to act on those passions. And if I have to be out there chasing after a career, a job, like a purpose, as this society puts it, then I'm non-functional. So I can't be passionate about anything. I'm just going to be tired. I'm just going to be like a zombie, pretty much. And unfortunately, that's where a lot of women end up in this context, Now we don't have the housewife duty, but now we have a lot of burnout. Now we have a lot of autoimmune issues and chronic fatigue, anxiety and depression. Like, maybe some of us aren't built for that. And our bodies are literally screaming no. There's this amazing book I read by Dr. Gabor Mate, and it was called When the Body Says No. And he explains there the connection between physical illnesses and stress. Basically, all kinds of stress, emotional, societal, and how all of that is interconnected, that you can't separate the emotions and the psychology from the body. And in it, he specifically talks about women and how autoimmune diseases are rampant. Like, the statistics are crazy of how many women get autoimmune conditions. And it's essentially, he's saying it's from stress. Because women are carrying more stress right now than they ever have before. Not only do they have the stress of a family, they have the stress of a job. They have the stress of a husband. Because women are designed to carry a lot in terms of the emotional world. When you add so much physical stress on top of that, it's like you can't keep up with that. It's gonna break you. I think we need to stop. I think we need to stop pretending that we're the same as men, is what I'm saying. Because we're not the same as men. We have very different strengths. I'm not talking about everyone. Some people can do it and thrive and be great. And those women, like, hats off to you. Congratulations. Like, you won the lottery because you can actually function. But to those of us that can't, to those of us that feel disconnected from this society because of it, like, I feel like our role as women in this society doesn't exist anymore. Not in a natural way. Not in a way that helps nurture those feminine traits and protects us, The most physical example of this is how much pain I was in every time I would get my period. I was absolutely destroyed every time. Like ever since my first period, basically. And it was my body's way of saying enough, no, stop. It's too much stress, this and that. Like the amount of pain I was in, and then I was expected to still go to school. Now I have some context for how much pain I was in, because recently I had to have some surgery done, and right after surgery, when the painkillers wore off, I felt like, oh shit, I'm in a lot of pain. Maybe I should tell somebody. So I told the nurse, I'm in a lot of pain. Can you give me some more painkillers? And they didn't believe me. And so I thought, okay, maybe this is normal. And I thought, it only hurts as much as my period. Like, it's fine. I can handle it. So I tried to breathe through it. And then I passed out. The next thing I remember is literally waking up and they're putting the painkillers in the IV. And it took literally 5 seconds for that to work. So clearly I needed a bit more pain medicine in that moment. But just saying, if it was able to make me pass out, imagine that level of pain, but you don't pass out. And it continues for 3 to 4 days, day and night. Like you can't sleep kind of pain. And I'm expected to function. I'm expected to go to school, which I would. And then I would end up in the nurse's office. You know what I'm saying? Like there's something, if that doesn't paint a picture of something is profoundly wrong here, and we are not the same as men. If that doesn't paint a picture, I don't know what does. And I'm not the only one. Maybe I had endometriosis and that's why it was so painful for me, but I'm not the only one. Literally 1 in 10 women have endometriosis. So yeah, maybe we're the unlucky ones, but why? Why are we still expected to perform? And I would always think to myself, like, what happens when I'm an adult? What's going to happen? Like, I am going to be in this much pain, and then I'm going to have to go to work. I'm going to have to go to work. I can't even breathe. I can't sit. I can't breathe. Like, how am I supposed to? And it would just make me cry. That's all I could do. I would just cry. I would think about it and cry. Look, I'm just putting it all out there. I would have loved to be a housewife in the 50s. No kids, let's specify. But a housewife, yes. I would have loved that. Like, I would have loved to take care of the home and that be my job and that be respected and that be, like, a non-controversial thing to do. And I don't have to deal with the outside world, which is so scary to me. I don't have to deal with money. I don't have to deal with all of that. So my child self was actually quite wise in looking at our housekeeper and being envious, because literally that was the role that I would have thrived in providing. If only I had been taught, you know? I would have loved to learn how to cook instead of learning math or science or whatever else. I would have loved that, to be taught how to clean properly. Like, come on, give me some technical skills here. School is a whole other story. Fucking useless. I hated school. But anyway. So yeah, I'm just discovering now, like, I do have passions. They just don't make sense in this context. They're just not valid. I'm just not allowed to be passionate about that. And that pisses me off. Because you know how good of a housewife I would have been? You know how satisfied I would have left a man? Let's forget about the fact that I'm a lesbian for a second, because that's another unfortunate reality that I have to deal with. But, like, I would have been such a good housewife, if you know what I'm saying. Whatever. I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts. Be sure to roast me in the comments and unsubscribe. I'll see you in my next video.